People need an income that's guaranteed to them.
If you lose money to taxes, you're never getting that money back.
You need to get serious about adding some lower risk.
Greed. I don't like greed.
The thing to be afraid of, honestly, is the thing that we're not thinking of, the black swan event.
There's a tsunami coming. Bye.
Welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Just coffee talk.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. Who do you listen to? Who do you not listen to? You have to stay focused.
A fun and informative look at the issues of wealth, retirement, and protecting your life savings.
These advisors out there that were trained to sell, and have all these fees, they don't want to talk about this product, so they make less money.
And now, Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. If it's time for you to talk about your retirement, you've been hearing Charisse on the radio for years. We've been talking about it. Why don't you give us a call? Let's sit down and do some math on your retirement. 833-368-3680. So how much do you spend in retirement? Everybody wonders, how much money do I need in retirement? And well, okay, let's dive into that a little bit. There's that one rule of thumb that says you'll spend 70 to 80% of your working year's income in retirement. And actually, when you look at the data, sometimes that really does hold up. So that might be one you look at there. But there's some new research here on how and when you spend your money. I thought this was interesting. Your spending peaks in your lifetime in your 40s and 50s. That's when your kids are in high school and they're going into college, and there's a ton to be spent there. Maybe some of your kids are getting married at that point. Lots of expenses there. And then when we get into our 50s, we start going, holy cow, retirement's not too far away. I got to save. And so people cut back a little bit, and then they start pushing money more toward retirement. And then you get into retirement. And Charisse, talk to me a little bit about what you've seen about when people, they're at the starting gate. Does it take them a little while to ease into it, or do they kind of go, I'm ready, let's go? What do you see?
You know what? That's a great question, because some people, we build out plans all day long and we front load retirement. The first 10 years, your go-go years, so let's go, let's spend money, and we'll pull back the reins when you're 70 a little bit. When things start hurting or health starts to maybe deteriorate. So let's do it while we can. I get people, we build the plan and then we have our reviews. And I've realized I'm looking at their money at Fidelity or wherever we have it located. I went, you didn't take any money this year. I was like, what happened? They're like, we didn't spend as much money as we thought. I'm like, but that was not the point. I said, we built it in to why didn't you go? And they said, I had honey-do lists, or this came up, or this came up. And then there are some people that are like, Charisse, give it to me and give it to me now, honey. Right? So I get a mix. And like literally this past week, I did a review, and they were supposed to start taking $50,000 a year, and they only took about $20,000. And I went, okay, so what are you going to do with this other 30? Do you have a new car? Do you want to gift it to the kids? What are your thoughts? This money was intended to be spent based on what the 30-year outlooks might possibly look like for the legacy. And they're just like, oh, I know. Maybe we'll save it for next year. And so we just have these ebbs and flows with clients. And sometimes they're really ready. And sometimes they're such good savers. They actually have a hard time saying, okay, I saw the plan. She said it's okay. And some of them, it takes a couple of years. And I know that for a fact. I'm on with a client right now in the third year. And they're finally like, okay, I think I could spend this money. I'm like, yep, sure can. Still in your plan. Now you get to take more money than you were going to do 3 years ago. And they're like, okay, well, I'm ready. Let's do it. And everybody has to walk that retirement journey at their own pace, right? And we'll walk it with you, but I will be nudging you the whole time, because I'm the one who sees people, their health deteriorate way sooner than I ever imagined. And we don't know when and who that's going to be. Some people live a year and they pass away, and then the spouse is left alone in the house and they didn't even get to do their traveling together. So this is why I just ooze, let's get you retired earlier if we can make it happen with these plans that we build out. Because I've seen, and I never thought 20 years ago, Randy, I would have seen what I have seen and all the things that can take place that I didn't realize could happen so soon. The things that I see people go through, I assumed back in my day, it'd be happening in the 80s. No, I see it in people's 50s and 60s and 70s. And when you're 70, you're like, gosh, I have saved way more money than I have ever imagined. Now I want to start spending. But now you're like, I can't even get off the cruise ship in Alaska and do the ground tour because of something or another.
Yeah.
So
a hip or a knee or something like that.
Yeah, and it's why I'm so passionate about, like, get in here, let's see what we can do, let's have some fun with it, and let's get you retired.
Well, what you're saying is exactly what they found in the data here, is that spending in retirement is, and they use the word volatile. One year it goes way up. Other years it goes way down. Sometimes people will take a big trip and then they say, okay, let's back off now because we don't think we can, the bucket's not going to get filled up, even though it is. Or the spending. So the spending goes up and down. One of the things they talk about here, and you've talked about this in the past, is spending in retirement's kind of like a smile. It's really a lot at the very beginning, and then you do all the trips and all the stuff that you want to do on your bucket list, and then it goes down a little bit. Then you just kind of chill for a little bit, and then the healthcare stuff starts to kick in, and then things go back up again. So another thing that came up in this survey is what they refer to as partial retirement. And you just mentioned this not long ago, of couples who might have an age gap, and one is 65 and the other's 55, or one is 70 and one is 60, or there's 5 or there's 10 years between them. One retires and the other one's still working. I got to believe that there's a lot of challenges that come with that when it comes to the planning aspect of it. And I mean, you mentioned that story before of the spouse who is not retired yet, and they get a little jealous seeing, the other one going on trips or sleeping in until 10.
Yes.
They don't like to, I want to be a part of that. And so talk to me a little bit about that.
Ladies and gentlemen, and ladies specifically, if you're listening, send this to your girlfriends.
All right.
Listen, women tend to live longer than their counterpart, aka men, right? And most women, a lot of your husbands are a little older than you. And on average, ladies can live 7 to 10 years longer, right? And so we're going to lose a Social Security check. Of the 2 Social Security checks coming into the household, if you're both collecting, one of them goes away. God forbid we lose a pension or even half a pension. And if you do lose a Social Security and part or an entire pension and your spouse passes away, do we have enough in that nest egg to cover your lifestyle, right? So we have to start thinking about that. And then here's the icing on the cake. Ladies and gents, but ladies, your taxes can all nearly double because you're not filing married jointly, you are filing single, and now your standard deductions cut in half and your marginal tax bracket went up, yet you lost 25% of your income because one of the Social Security checks went away. So that's a whole nother element that most advisors don't talk about, nor do they care. And they're like a deer in the headlights. They're like, go to the CPA. And the CPAs aren't even talking about this. This is why you come to a tax strategist that actually understands that, because we're doing it for all of our clients. What if you pass away and taxes go up? What do we need to do now to keep taxes down in the future if it were to happen? So it's just not about your income. It's about your tax plan. It's about the investment plan. It's how much you're spending now, how young you are. Do we have debt? Are you going to buy another house? I'm going to tell you, lo and behold, ladies, you all decide to upgrade your homes in retirement. I've learned this and I've just gone with it. But everybody wants a bigger home. You're retired, and within a couple years, like, we're going to buy a bigger home. And I'm thinking, don't we downsize in retirement? No, I will say 75% of people we see, there's another home that is purchased, and it's usually a bigger home and a nicer home, which has become a shocker to me over all these years. And then if a spouse passes away early, depending on where the real estate market is, then you're probably going to downsize. You're thinking, well, I don't have as much income. I got to downsize. Now I got to sell this house at a lower price. Sometimes we're in the hole. And these households, if you guys do live a long time together, you buy this bigger home, and then I would say in less than 10 years, you're selling it and downsizing anyways. I call that the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
But
I get it.
But I'm not in retirement, and maybe I do the same thing. I don't know. But we have to plan for those costs. And there are areas when you're doing that could be derailed. I had a client that really derailed their retirement plans. They're like adamant, we need $500,000 from this account, Sharice. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, we're going to spend less and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm worried about you guys. And they did it. And they're still in the house. They are 80 years old right now. And now they want to move. And gosh, at 80 years old, who wants to move? And they ended up dumping more money in the house than they ever planned. And some of that money came from their IRAs. And it's just, we will advise till we're blue in the face. But you get to do what you want with your money. But I will show you the path and I'll show you how it could get derailed. And if you get lucky, this is where you could be also, if it's on a positive note, right?
Yeah, that whole idea of, women living longer than men. I mean, there's in my family alone, I'm looking at, I was just figuring while you were talking there, my one grandmother, 16 years alone. My other grandmother, 22 years alone. My mom, 23 years alone. And that's a lot of alone time and a lot of adjustments to make after you get into your retirement years. So these are the things when we talk about spending in retirement, everybody's worried about, did I save enough money? Did I do this right? Is my money in the right place? The only way to know is to really to sit down and go through that. As we say every week, let's do the math on your retirement. We'll do a no cost, no obligation meeting with you. Both of you come to the meeting. Let's figure that out together and sit down and say, this is what you've done for retirement. This is what you want to do in retirement. Let's put the two things together here. See how long this money lasts. If you like that number, fantastic. Let's go. If you don't like the numbers, let's rework it and figure out how we can get to the place you want to be. Here's our number and here's our website. Give Sharice a look on the website, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. And there's a gold box there. It says complimentary retirement consultation. Click on that. You'll be on your way. Or just skip all that and call us. 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680. All right, so we mentioned the 4% rule, and Barron's decided, okay, this is that long-time, hard and fast rule about retirement that you'll never run out of money if you just take 4%. So they said, let's look at some years when the market was really funky. And they picked 1969. So apparently that was a pretty volatile year in the stock market. So they said if you retired at the end of 1969, your money lasted 35 years. But if you retired at the beginning of 1969, your money ran out in 26 years. So
we're talking about a time where TV was still black and white, right?
That is going back a ways, isn't it?
Okay.
That truly is. But in any event, I mean, this brings up what we talked about. I mean, we just mentioned it. Don't let your retirement be dictated by the stock market. Mm-hmm. So if you're 100% invested, this is what you're up against. And I mean, this brings up the idea we can't many times control when we retire. Because sometimes that's forced upon us. We've talked about that today. But we can control how our money is invested. So talk to me a little bit about that. This is the person who retires and they walk out and they're happy and then the market tanks and they're like, oh my God, what am I going to do now?
Okay, so I'm going to test everyone out there. So if you're driving your car, maybe pull over or just get ready because I want you to paint a picture, like right now. Pretend you're meditating and I'm forcing you to do this and you got to really chill out for a second. Okay. I don't know if you're 50 listening or 55 or 60 or if you're 70, right? Or maybe you're 80. So what I want you to do is think back to the year of 1999. Okay. From 1980 to 1999, the Dow Jones grew over 1,000%. And you're like, man, we just keep making money, right? And so this is where the 4% rule was born because markets were going up, up, and away. But they don't always go up, up, and away, but that's what happened during that time period. So now it's 1999, and you and your spouse said, it's time to retire. We're going to collect our Social Security check. We have between both of us $50,000 in income from that, and we saved this grand old $1 million in our 401k. And now we're going to follow this 4% rule because these stock jock who you've been working with for the last 20 years helped you grow your money. And you're saying, okay, well, I only need 40 grand more. So my 50,000 Social Security and then 40,000 for my 401k. I have $1 million. Then I will never run out of money, Mr. and Mrs. Stock Jock. That is right, Mr. and Mrs. whoever you are. And then you turn in those keys to retirement in 1999 and you wake up in the year of 2000 and you got your Social Security check. And by the end of 2000, you've collected your 40 grand. And what was happening in the year of 2000?
It was.
From the year of 2000 to 2002, that was a 33-month decline. Now, here we go. You guys still paint the picture. Pretend we are in 1999 right now. And tomorrow we wake up and it's the beginning of 2000. And this picture really needs to be painted for the person who's actually living on their investment right now. And now I want you to think 33 months from now. Where is your money invested today? Where are you pulling the money from? Are you in a 60-40 portfolio? Because bonds went down, equities went down, and the cardinal rule is do not sell anything from your investments when the market goes down. Yet your 401k, because you pulled that 40 grand out, 2000, 2001, and 2002, and the stock market went down, your 401k is officially a 201k. Now, 33 months later, what do you think you did? Well, you probably kept living on your money because nobody taught you this thing called sequence of returns risk, which is AKA the word for I am now afraid to run out of money because I saw this happen to friends and family. And then the bottom, and then it took 5 years to crawl out of the hold. So let's say you're 65 right now, you're collecting your checks, you're in the same scenario. 33 months later, your 401k turned to 201k. So now your $1 million is 500,000. And over the next 5 years, you are not allowed to touch your money while that $500,000 is recovering to $1 million. Because when you lose that kind of money, it takes 4 to 5 years to recover. So mitts off the whole way down and the whole way up. So that was 7 to 8 years. You couldn't touch your money. So where are you pulling your money from? Nobody's thinking of that, Randy. Listen, I'm not telling you the market's about to fall out. I'm telling you one day the market's going to fall out, and I need you to start thinking about that. So I believe most retirees should have 5 years of income baked into something that cannot lose when the stock market goes down. So you do not have to change your lifestyle, because I promise you this much. If you don't plan for this day, you're going to be pacing up and down the hallway at 2 o'clock in the morning saying woulda, coulda, shoulda. And I say this all the time. If you tell your spouse, your wife, that we cannot book a trip for 5 years, you're in big trouble, buddy. Yeah. Happy wife, happy life. And all kidding aside, this has happened. So we have to plan. That's what we're planning for here. We're stress testing your retirement. We're finding different ways to make a rate of return in 5 different buckets. Some buckets won't be harmed by the stock market. Some buckets could be harmed by the stock market. And we're just getting creative so that this epidemic that took place and the worry of running out of money doesn't happen across the country again. And there's other advisors like me practicing the same practice, which is great because the stock jocks are getting a little bit better.
It's interesting. You know, you mentioned 1980 to 1999, market goes up 1,000%. So everybody was probably pretty thinking, the market can do nothing but go up.
Right.
And then you got 2000 to 2002 with the tech wreck, goes way down.
Yep.
Then in those 5 years that you say you have to recover, then what happened? 5 years later, 2008, 2009, subprime mortgage crisis went down even more.
That was the S&P dropped in 18 months. It wasn't even 33 months this time. It was 18 months that S&P dropped because that subprime mortgage crash, 51%. And then it didn't take 5 years to recover. It basically took close to 4 years to recover. But still, that's 6 years. I mean, that is a double whammy. And I went on a tangent because during that 2000 era, 2000 to 2010, that was called the lost decade. And if you follow the 4% rule, you were in trouble because 2000 to 2010, the average was 1.8%. So every year, if you're taking out 4% and then the average is 1.8%, you're taking way too much out based on the rate of return that's actually happening out there. So this is that time period why so many people fear running out of money, because nobody knew it was going to happen, and nobody knew it was going to happen twice.
So, I mean, let me put it to you another way. Okay, let's say, for instance, in the year 2000, you had a child, and that child was 15 years old before you got your money back to the same spot that you had it in 2000.
Yeah.
That is incredible to think about.
Well, and here's the other thing you need to think about. Some of you are like, what is she even talking about? We're talking about the people who retired during that time period. Now, if you were working and you still kept your job and your employer didn't fire you because of the economy, well, you were in a growth mode and you were building wealth like crazy, because every time that stock market went down every 2 weeks, you were plugging money in that 401k and buying stock at a low cost for that 33 months. So for some people, it was a wealth building. You weren't retired yet. And those people, I'm talking to you, you haven't seen a real crash. Now you're retired and you went through it. You got your paychecks. You made more money than ever because you're just contributing and you're in that accumulation phase. And now you're about to embark into this decumulation phase where you're living on your money. It's a different strategy. This is why it's important to work with a retirement planner that understands this. You go from the accumulation advisor to the decumulation advisor. Bottom line.
Well, you know, that period of time you said 1980 to 1999, there's 19 years. Think about how far we are now away from 2008. 17 years.
Right.
Yeah, we saw a pullback during COVID, but that only lasted about 3 to 6 months. Yeah, we saw another pullback when the tariffs, but that only lasted 2 weeks. You know, we are really very much due for something, some kind of a bear market. A bear market is a 20% pullback that lasts longer than 3 months. And so this is, it's out there. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And you look at your accounts right now, and I want you to look at that account. You got that number in your head right now? Now take 20% off it. How do you feel?
Right. You got $1 million. You just lost $200,000. How does that feel? Yeah, how does that feel? Number one, and if you know the one thing you have to consider. If you make 20%, your 1 million will go to 1.2 million. You're not going to change the way you spend. You're not even going to go out. You're not even going to go out and go buy that brand new RV. But if you have $1 million and you lost 20%, that 200,000, now you're at 800,000. I guarantee you're going to change your lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly right. We don't want that to happen to you. We're not trying to be, you know, fearmonger and we're the market's going to crash. Blah, blah. No, that's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying at all. What I'm saying is look at the number that you've got right now, knock 20% off of it. What is that feeling in your gut like right now? Ugh. How long did it take you to save $200,000? A long time. So let's not lose that. Let's put a floor under that. Even if you're a couple of years away from retirement, let's not wait. Let's sit down and have the conversation about protecting your money, growing your money, building income for your money, having a tax strategy for your money, the legacy planning aspect. Let's get it all out on the table. 833-368-3680 is our number. 833-368-3680, or use our website, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. Hit the gold box. It says complimentary retirement consultation. That's just basically a meeting. It's where we sit down, get to know you, and see what have you done for retirement? What do you want to do in retirement? Let's put it all together. Again, 833-368-3680. All right, so busy time of the year for you, fourth quarter, and as we move our way through November and into December, that is the time for RMDs. What is an RMD? Sharice, tell me what's going on right now. What is probably the number one thing on your list right now of figuring out? A lot of math going on right now, isn't there?
There really is. RMD, required minimum distributions. If you have a 401k, IRA, 403B, TSP, you name it, anything you saved in a retirement plan, well, when you turned a very special age, you have to pull money out and a certain percentage out. So let's talk about the rules and the nuts and bolts of these required minimum distributions. Because rules have changed over the last few years. So I know you all are talking at the water cooler, and some of you are like, well, when do we have to collect this RMD? Is it 70 and a half? Is it 72, 73, 75? And one person at that water cooler is probably saying, oh, yeah, it's like 75. And somebody's like, no, you got to take it at 70 and a half, because there's a lot of confusion out there because it's changed so many times over the last few years. So let's start with the basics. What age do you have to take RMDs now based off the Secure Act 2.0 rules? And so if you were born in 1950, hey, listen, you're taking it at age 72. If you were born between 1951 and 1959, you get to take it at 73. And anybody who's taken it over 1960, that would be 75. So if you're born after 1960, you take it at 75. Between 1951 and 1959, you take it at 73, and there you have it. So there are the rules. So share that at the water cooler. I had a client come in asking, okay, I'm confused. Okay, so this is why we're talking about this. RMDs, on top of that, you have to take a percentage out of your retirement accounts, out of all of them, okay? And or what you can do is take the grand total of that number and take it all out of one if you wanted to. I always say don't take the saddle off the horse that's winning the race. So if you have an exchange traded fund that made 20% this year, you have an annuity that made 10, you had a CD that made 5, pull it from the CD. Let the other stuff continue to grow, right? So the percentage, Randy, that you have to pull out is about 3.78%. Okay. Right. So if you had $1 million, you can calculate that 3.78% pretty easily. There's actually a real divisor number, and we go through that with our clients when they come in, because some people want to know, what bucket should I pull it from, Sharice? And we already kind of have that all dived into. So I will tell you this much, Randy. I was doing a class in the Villages a few days ago, and a lady said, I don't understand this RMD thing. And so we talk about that in our classes. And she was more concerned, like, why do I have to pull this out? And why is the percentage at 3.78%? Because she's turning 73. And she said, and for how long do I have to do this? And you have to do this for the rest of your lives. And one of my charts in the class, it shows, hey, by the time you're in your 80s, you're pulling out 8%. She's like, wait a minute, I have to pull out 8% by the time I'm in my 80s? And I said, yes. So I was doing a tax planning class, and she went, but if my portfolio doubles, that means I'm taking 8% of whatever my portfolio doubles. I'm like, exactly. Like she already beat me to the chase. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about that. So when you first have to take an RMD, it's under 4%, just by a hair. But every year you get older, that percentage goes up every year, and it never goes away, and it gets higher and higher and higher. So let's say you're 73 today, and you have $1 million. And let's say your money doubles in 10 years. I mean, you're being moderately aggressive, right? Moderate zone, depending on our 10-year period, of course. And let's say it doubles to $2 million. If you have to take 8% of $2 million, that's $160,000. Yeah. So I say, well, what if you're married, filing jointly, and you have $50,000 in Social Security? Because if you have $1 million in IRA and retirement accounts, you probably have somewhere around $50,000 in Social Security between two people. So you add the $160,000 and the $50,000, you're at $210,000. You take the write-off with inflation in the future. Guess what? Not only are you paying massive taxes, because taxes are probably going to be sky high then, who really knows, but that's what I'm assuming. But now you got to worry about ugly Irma, your Medicare Part B premium, and your prescription drugs, where right now you pay $174 and change a month for your Medicare Part B. Well, guess what? You're going to get all the way to $250, maybe $350 a month for the rest of your life. So it's not just the here and now. And I say that a lot. Right now, things are a little bit easy, but I want you to go out to when we're a little bit older, right? And if you're younger than that, if you say let's say you're not 73, say you're 63, and then you double your money. I mean, it gets worse and it gets worse and gets worse. So this is why so many people are now realizing, oh my gosh, I got IRMA penalties. There's 8 taxes that you might have to pay depending on how high your income gets based on your IRAs. I have a client that's $4 million in their IRA, and we are working so hard to roll these IRAs to Roth because they're really in big trouble because they got a great pension and Social Security and real estate. And so we're moving based on our tax plan about $250,000 a year for that one client for the next 10 years. Oh yeah. The goal is to get at least half of it out for them because they don't want that $4 million to go to $8 million in 15, 20 years if they're super ultra conservative, and then pass it on to the kids and then give all that work goes back to Uncle Sam's pocket. No, thank you. So part of our tax planning strategy is to see if we roll over $25,000 a year or $50,000 or $100,000, whatever the number is, whatever your goal is, we're going to show it to you. And how many taxes are hitting you while you're doing it? Does it make sense? Because once in a blue moon, it says, it actually doesn't make sense to roll IRAs to a Roth. Listen, the RMDs never go away. You're always going to have to take it. And when you pass away, if you're married, now your spouse has to take that RMD. And guess what? Their taxes go up, their income goes down. So if we can alleviate that tax pressure for the surviving spouse, which we call the widow's penalty, from a dear friend of mine who's a financial advisor who came up with that wonderful term, to then you got the kiddos penalty where the kids are going to pay an even larger tax bill, 35, 45% based on today's rates, not tomorrow's rates. So we got to be very cautious on that. And I'm going to go ahead and put the myth buster out there because people think when I retire, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket. Hello, that is not true. That myth buster is a myth, and the average retiree is in a higher tax bracket. And if you happen to be one of the lucky ones where you're not, then we can bet your spouse will be when you pass away, because your tax brackets go up and your deductions go down, and now you've lost some income. So RMD planning is more critical and crucial right now than really ever before. And now we might have a good 6 years where taxes stay down, where people can crush it and start really rolling these over at the rate that we sit today, which would be incredible, Randy.
Well, I learned two great lessons, retirement lessons, one from my father and one from my father-in-law. From my father, don't buy a boat. Okay, that was a good retirement lesson. Don't buy a boat. It's a hole in the water that you throw money into. Yes, it's very, very true. But from my father-in-law, who every April would scream bloody murder, saying that he had to write a check to the government for $30,000 and $40,000. That was because he had a nice pension, he had Social Security, and he had a nice IRA. And he didn't detax it in his years before retirement. So every year he would scream bloody murder, I've got to write another huge check to the government. I didn't think this would happen to me in retirement. So after all that she has said right there, this is the problem. Let's see if we can figure out the solution. That brings us to the number one thing that people are asking this year when it comes to sitting down with retirement planners. Here is Sharon Epperson from CNBC.
Roth conversion saw a 46% increase year over year in the second quarter of 2024, according to Fidelity. Shifting money from a pre-tax IRA or 401k to a Roth IRA can lower taxable income in retirement and provide tax-free growth.
A record number of people have come to people like Charisse this year and said, I see this on the horizon. How can I fix it? So this idea of having systematic withdrawals out of your IRA or 401k and say, I've got $1 million in there. Can we take $50,000 a year, $75,000 a year, $100,000 a year and pay the taxes on it now so I don't have this problem in the future? Charisse, is this a big part of what you've been doing this year as far as planning is concerned?
It's a huge part. I have been on overload trying to do a ton of tax plans, us and our advisors, as many as we can, as fast as we can when we're doing reviews with clients and new people coming in, because I am worried about taxes in the future, 10 years, 20 years, to the surviving spouses, to the kiddos. There's a lot to talk about. And it's interesting, our tax planning software, CPAs don't have. So what's so neat about it is that it's some of the first visuals you're ever going to see in your life. I'm telling you, I don't know anybody else who does it like this. We're going to show you, if you do nothing and you stay the course, and let's say taxes stay right where they're at today and they never change, what are the taxes to you? What are the taxes to your surviving spouse? And what are the taxes to your heirs based on the rules today? And then we're going to show you a couple scenarios. What if we rolled 25 a year? What if we rolled 50 a year? What is the benefit? And 9 out of 10 times, Randy, there is an average of 800 to 2 million extra left to the beneficiaries in wealth, and we paid a whole lot less in taxes during the next 30 years and after death to the beneficiaries. It is a huge deal. And most people are probably listening saying, I would like to see that, Charisse. I've talked to my CPA. They're not telling me squatski. They're doing my bookkeeping. They're like, yeah, go ahead and roll $10,000 or $20,000. This is what you'll pay. But it's not just the here and now what you'll pay. I want you to see what it looks like in 10 years, your tax bill, in 20 years and 30 years, and what it looks like to your beneficiaries. And so we have this amazing tax software that does that for us. And we can also talk about in that tax software, do we do donor advised funds? Do we do some of our tax loss harvesting strategies? We do all those things. And here's the funny thing that I never thought was going to happen, Randy. The CPAs are asking us for this because they don't have it. So even if the CPA isn't working with us, a client is finding out, well, CPA wants to see what you're doing because they don't have access to that kind of stuff. Well, I pay a pretty penny for this software, and people are loving it. Our clients, CPAs we've never even heard from, are starting to reach out to us, asking us to run that scenario for their clients. So it's fantastic. And if you haven't rolled an IRA to a Roth yet and you're considering it, it would be worth the free consultation. I have yet to have anybody complain about it. And every single person, except for, I would say, over the last month, 2 for me personally, are rolling IRAs to Roths because taxes are on sale. Take advantage of the sale. When shoes are on sale, I go buy 3 pairs of that same shoe. And so I want to talk about the different ways that you can convert IRAs to Roth, or how you can actually contribute to a Roth IRA, because there's different ways to fund these Roths. And the whole purpose of a Roth, let me just reiterate this, every dollar in a Roth grows tax-free. Any interest in that Roth, as long as you're 59 and a half and older and you've had it for 5 years, all the interest grows tax-free. Now, look at your 401ks and IRAs. All of your contributions, you have to pay taxes 100% based on your ordinary income taxes. And all the contributions your employer put in, 100%. You're paying taxes on it based on ordinary income rates. So it's all fully taxable to you, your surviving spouse, and your kids. Like, you're wasting money by not rolling these IRAs to a Roth on average. So let's talk about different ways to fund a Roth IRA. The first way would be you can contribute to a Roth IRA, right? You can, at any age, you can contribute to a Roth IRA, but you have to have W-2 wages. You have to be getting paid. So, for example, if you're under 50 and you wanted to contribute a max of $7,000 to a Roth IRA, you have to be at least making $7,000 with your employer. So if you make 10, hey, you can put 7 into Roth. If you only make $5,000 at your employer this year, hey, you can only contribute $5,000. But there's also another rule. If you make too much money, Randy, and you hit these thresholds, then you can't contribute to a Roth. But then that leads me to number 2. If that's you and you can't contribute to a Roth, we like doing backdoor Roth IRAs. And it just means, okay, your income's too high. Uncle Sam says the rules are you can't contribute. But if you put it into an IRA, that's $7,000, a non-deductible IRA, so you won't be able to write it off on your tax bill, then day 2, you can convert it to a Roth. So there you have it. There is a backdoor way into a Roth IRA. So it's the second way you can do it in case your income's too high. The third way to contribute to a Roth IRA is to roll over your IRAs that you have now to a Roth IRA. But what you have to do, this is why we're going to show it to you when you come in and see us, you have to pay the taxes on the rollover, right? So that is the third way to do it. And you can do that in your 30s. We do it for 90-year-olds. You can do it at any age. So those are the 3 ways. I truly believe the Roth IRAs are the way of the future if you're trying to protect your legacy. If you go back 20 years ago and you had $1 million and you're like, I always just want to live on the interest, I always want to leave this $1 million to my beneficiaries, that was a true thing back in the day, but now it's not, because an average of 35 to 45% of it's going to not go to your beneficiaries now. It's going to go to Uncle Sam because they can no longer stretch those IRAs. So there's more of a reason to start rolling IRAs to a Roth today, and let's figure out at what rate, how much, and then create a plan from there.
So there's 7 tax brackets, 10, 12, 22, 24, 32, 35, and 37. Those apparently are going to stay the same because Donald Trump has designed that, and he'll probably keep that steady. So the secret here then is if you are in the 22% tax bracket and you want to roll money over, convert money over, you want to make sure that you don't get yourself into the next tax bracket, which puts you into a higher tax liability.
Well, I beg to differ on that comment.
All right, let's talk about it.
Because to roll and hit that number, let's say, I don't want to do the math on radio, but let's say you just roll enough to hit that 22% tax bracket. But you really deep down inside, gosh, I got to do more work. I got to do this faster. I do want to roll more. Randy, it's only 2 pennies more. That's the way to look at it. It's only 2% more. So take advantage of that next tax bracket.
Okay. All right.
22 to 24% to me makes sense. So a lot of people have this thing in their head like, okay, we'll roll just enough over so we don't go over that 22% tax bracket. But why? Why can't we go to 24%? It's only 2% more.
All right. So in that instance, I get it. What if you're going from 24 to 32 or from 24 to 35?
So that's where it changes, right?
All right.
So that's where I switched gears. I said, okay, listen, we can do this much at the 24% tax bracket, but if we do this much more, now we start to get at a higher level. We got to worry about other taxes that come into the picture. Is it worth it? And sometimes it's not. And sometimes for people who have millions of IRAs, it is absolutely worth it. So, and the worth is in the eyes of the beholder, right?
Yeah.
So you also have to believe that to be true. But we're going to show you the math, and we'll show you whether it's at the 12% or the 22 or the 24 or so on and so forth. We're going to show it to you, and you get to decide. And we have such a beautiful, easy way in one page to show this to you.
Well, we have a saying around here that we say every single show and every single commercial, and that is, let's do the math on your retirement. And this is a prime example of where the math comes in. Give us a call. Give us a look on our website. Schedule that complimentary retirement consultation. Yes, we are certainly going to talk about your investments, but let's talk about taxes. It's one of the most neglected parts of retirement planning, but not at Zinnia Wealth. Give us a look at our website, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. Hit the gold box there. It says complimentary retirement consultation. We'll ask you to put in a little information so our team will reach out to you. Or just bypass all that, give us a call, 833-368-3680. Again, 833-368-3680. We'll sit down and have a conversation about your retirement and get the pencil and paper going, and let's do some math to find out exactly what your income's going to be and what your tax liability is going to be. And how can we help? Again, 833-368-3680. All right, so we talked about the great wealth transfer. Over the next 20 years, about $84 trillion is going to be passed down to the next generation. A lot of people would be excited about getting an inheritance, but there's a group of people that are not. And that group is, shockingly, financial advisors. There's a new study out there that says when a spouse passes away and the money passes down, that advisor loses that client 22% of the time. When both parents are gone and the money goes down to the children, advisors lose that client 42% of the time. And many people believe that those numbers are much higher.
I will tell you something, Randy. I had a client come in and tell me something about what her son said. And I was shocked. And she was shocked when she heard it. They're in their 30s, and the son came to the mom and said, there's a big conversation out there that, us young people, they feel like they don't have to save as much and they can continue to spend because the wealth that they're going to receive when their parents pass away. And I looked at her and I went, oh my gosh, that's what they're thinking. She's like, she said he was part of this group and this is what they're talking about. And they were excited about, their wealth they were going to get. And so they feel like they can just, glide right on by. And she's like, I'm just embarrassed to even tell you that, my son said that and he's thinking the same thing. And I went, oh dear, like I didn't know that was the thinking out there. And you're right. What's going to happen is baby boomers, let's go back to the Great Generation. The Great Generation did not save a whole lot of money in IRAs and 401ks. So the monies that were passed down to the baby boomers were brokerage accounts, real estate, and some IRAs, right? So it wasn't a big hit because the step up in the cost basis is more tax efficient for the people inheriting those dollars from the Great Generation. But now the baby boomers, they saved the greatest part of their wealth inside these retirement accounts. And now those retirement accounts are going to be passed on to these younger families, and they're looking for the wealth. And what's going to happen is if mom and dad pass down $1 million, now taxes are still reasonably high, even though we're in some of the lowest marginal tax rates. When it comes to your IRAs is what I'm talking about. $1 million, the beneficiaries really only get like $650,000 of that.
And what's terrible is they don't care. They don't care about those taxes. Mom and dad are rolling over in their graves saying, you just gave $400,000 to the government, but they don't care because they're getting $600,000.
And they'll cash it out. A lot of them are going to cash it out right away, and they're going to go buy the things. Yeah. I've already seen it happen. Yeah. Like, I'm not happy with what I'm seeing when clients are passing away, and I'm seeing the younger generation inherit this money. I'm just, some of these, the boomers are so organized and well put together and had a plan. And I'm watching these kids spend the money, pay all the taxes in 1 year, spend the money on cars and doing this and that. And it's frustrating to watch because I know mom and dad didn't want that. Yeah. They wanted their monies to be lasting for their entire lives and maybe pass to the next generation. So on top of the problem is that all the IRAs that were saved from the baby boomers, it used to not be taxed in this method, just so you know. The stretch IRA is gone. The government got rid of the stretch IRA. So a lot of times the younger generations would just take some income out every month or every year, and it would keep going and going and going, where you didn't have to pay that entire tax bill, Randy. Mm-hmm. But now you're having to pay this entire tax bill on these retirement accounts that your parents saved for 40 years of their life, over 10 years. And then we're seeing some of them cash it out right away. So we're seeing a lost legacy going to the government, right? We got to get our debt down somehow. And so they came after the boomers when they pass away, because they know their kids are going to spend that money and cash it all out. And they're getting Uncle Sam's getting their money right away. So I don't believe that that's the way it should be. And unfortunately, the baby boomers work so hard. Now they got to work even harder to try to get that money to their kids tax-free. So more of that legacy goes to the kids and not to Uncle Sam. So I don't know. It's a complete mess, just so you know. And things have changed. There's always changes. This is one of the changes I didn't like. I would like those kiddos, adult kids, to be able to stretch those IRAs for the rest of their lives and not have to pay the taxes over the first 10 years. But that's not where we're at anymore. And so now the baby boomers, I feel like you got to work even harder after all the years you have worked hard.
And this is usually the case when people don't have a good relationship with a financial advisor and a tax professional, and they aren't informed about how this goes. All they do is they look at what's coming their way. They don't look at what the taxes are, and probably aren't really looking at mom and dad's wishes as they move into this money. Well, financial planning, retirement planning isn't just about investments. It's also about taxes. It's also about estate planning. There's a lot of different things to talk about, and we can talk about them with you. Give us a call. Give us a look on our website. We offer you a complimentary retirement consultation. Really, that's a big word for a meeting. Let's sit down and talk about your retirement. 833-368-3680 or 833-368-3680 or zinniawealth.com. Sharice, that is all the time we have on this segment. I'll give you the last word on this one.
Well, thank you all once again. Have a great weekend. Live by design and not by default. And we'll see you here next week.
This has been Retirement Coffee Talk. To find out more about how the strategies we've discussed on this program can build the retirement you've been wanting, call Zinnia Wealth at 352-368-3680 or visit us online at zinniawealth.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, a registered investment advisor. The firm only conducts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded from registration requirements. Registration is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Insurance products are offered through Zinnia Wealth Management, LLC, Florida license L078655, and Sharice Rivers, Florida license P037744. Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, and Zinnia Wealth Management, LLC are affiliated entities. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the podcast and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this podcast is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Any client experience discussed on this show are unique to that client. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities or other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. References to specific investments should not be construed as being past specific recommendations. The returns for various indices discussed in this podcast do not represent the performance of the firm or any of its advisory clients. Returns do not reflect the impact that advisory fees will have on an investment. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. All investment strategies have potential for profit or loss. Different types of investments involve higher and lower levels of risk. There is no guarantee that a specific investment strategy will be suitable or profitable for an investor's portfolio. Historical performance returns for investment indexes and or categories usually do not deduct transaction and or custodial charges or advisory fees, which would decrease historical performance results. There are no guarantees that a portfolio will match or outperform a specific benchmark. Investments in fixed income products are subject to liquidity risk, market risk, index rate risk, credit risk, inflation risk, purchasing power risk, and taxation risk. Because bond prices fluctuate continually, their yields change constantly.